Welcome to Light Talk with Jason and Jordan. I'm Jordan. To the right of here is Jason, and tonight we have a returning guest, W.L. Wagner, to talk a bit about his second book, which is called The Galactic Federation of Light Manual. Wagner, would you like to say hello?
Of course. First of all, thank you all guys so much. It's such an honor to be back here. Um, well, uh, I'm WL Rodriguez, and my first name is actually Wagner, but I know that this is a very difficult name to say, so that's why I adopted WL in my books. That's the only reason. Um, well, I just a quick recap of who I am. Um, Back in May last year, I had an amazing, out of this world contact with Pleiadians during an astral projection, and they mentioned that a work would start. I didn't know what that was. I was totally lost. And I was already thinking about doing channeling, but not at that galactic level, if I may say. Um, so, um, so then I started with a simple session where I would just, you know, sit down with a pen and see what happened. Um, and basically, what happened was that nothing happened. The only thing that happened was that a small, kind of a small heart drawn, like if you take a sheet of paper and you draw a heart there with a pen. That's exactly what I saw with a black pen, something like that. By coincidence or not, I was using a black pen at that very moment, and I was I didn't understand what that meant. So I spent a long time, the whole session trying to figure out think that my I was thinking that by some reason my hands would start writing, or I would start vocalizing the channeling or something. But the that little heart was the only thing that happened. Later that day, when I was taking a bath, uh, an idea just popped into my mind. I mean, hey, what if the message was really the heart and I was just supposed to write down or to draw that little heart on the paper, right? And that's what I did in the next session. First thing, I took the pen, uh, did my preparation, and then that picture of that heart came again to my mind very clear, only that. So I put it on the paper. And it was amazing. As I put that on a paper, it seemed that I unlocked a whole universe. Then letters started to pop up into my mind, like A, B, C, random letters, numbers, um, small worlds, a bunch of stuff. And I understood that that was kind of them or the higher realm calibrating my brain somehow. So after one, and then that was basically the first session. The next session, I was able to start writing phrases uh, very slowly. Um, Kind of a whole session would I would write a couple phrases, something like that. But then, like in less than a couple weeks, I was already writing fluently. Like, if someone was there dictating and I was just taking notes, um, and that's where the bulk of the my books they came from all these sessions. Um, my work it's totally voluntary. Um, I don't charge for any of that. Uh, Actually, my books, even though they are on Amazon, and Amazon makes me charge for the books because they need to get some money. Uh, all the I just tell people that they are at Google Play, and that's for free. So anyone can access those messages, those books. There are the beauty of the work that it started with one single book that, and then right now we have I have 12 published books in two languages, English and Portuguese, and I'm working on the 13th right now. And so you can have an idea. So these are all the books put together. This is how big it is in less than a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a lot of stuff, a lot of information. And so I decided to create a book series for that. I mean, I thought that would be just a book, but it's an ever growing collection. Um, people people usually tell me that I write faster than they can read these books, and but that's funny. I mean, the good thing is that people can jump into these books in any order. You don't have to, it's not a novel. You don't have to, read book one so you can understand the characters, the story, and then I need to now move to book two and three and four. No, it's not like that because they are more they're messages. So pretty much each book is self-contained. If there is anything that says, hey, let's recap something because I thought that would be nice to recap, then I do a quick recap in the chapter, something like that. But you can just jump in book seven or five or six or whatever book, just start reading it. And I have been I'm sorry. I have received messages from a multitude of beings. So let's start with spirits, from the spiritual realm. Um, Spirits like you and me, you know, common people that just, they just telling their stories, how they died or how what they went through, after they passed. How are their lives in the afterworld, uh and higher, well, not necessarily higher, but important historical figures like uh, Albert Einstein. um in the latest book there was a Russian general that I forgot his name, Kuzov, I think, uh, a samurai. from Japan, um, prophets like Zachary, Isaiah. Uh, One of the mentors of this project is the Apostle Matthew. So they're biblical figures, higher spirits so much more evolved than we are, bringing lessons of love, lessons, uh, recomforting messages at these times. And and of course there are the galactic part, right? I mentioned the Pleiadians back then, and of course Pleiadians, Syrians, Alpha Centaurians. Um, well, you can people that I don't even know where they are. There are cases where they say, "Hey, your science didn't discover my planet yet." Or they might say, "Oh, your science already discovered the planet, but you don't know that planet." And I say, "Okay, I mean, um, the messages, and I think that's the beauty of this work because the messages are so eclectic that if you like history, there's a message for you there. If you like, more biblical figures, there's the message there. If you like, the aliens, that's it's in there. So uh, every single book, it's like, of course, it's a compilation of messages, but it brings a a specific theme. So that usually I only discover when we're kind of towards the end of the book. Then I look at the book, and say, "Oh, I see." This book is talking in general about this particular topic, and that's how I wrap up and I put let's say a title on the book. So, for example, the latest book, it's called "Life is Everywhere." It's this guy here, and in "Life is Everywhere," that this is funny because it started in a way and it ended in another. It started saying that with messages related to UAP disclosures, alien disclosures, bunch of messages in that sense. But then, kind of like from in the middle of the book, the focus, their focus changed. It it started talking about the wars, right? And that's when the war between the U.S. and Iran started, exploded. So they shifted their focus and started, providing messages around that theme. And it was funny because I was trying to think, hey, okay, guys, I mean, we have two themes. So how do I, what would be a title for this for this book? We're talking about alien life and we're talking about war. They don't match. And then, well, basically, what came to my mind was there's, of course, there's one theme uniting both. That is life. We're talking about life out there, right? Life in the unknown, in the vast cosmos. We're, but we are also talking about life in this on this planet. In the middle of war, there is life that we must value, right? And that's where the title came from. Life is everywhere, everywhere. It's here, it's out there. So it's a pretty amazing. This book um, is pretty intense in that sense. So there's a lot of good things. So if people like the theme of that is the hot topic now, right? Disclosure. There's this movie, the Steven Spielberg movie coming up, right? Um, so it's all about it, and of course, lessons from very important people about war. So, for example, let me I forgot the name of the so that's this Russian general Orson Welles. There's a message from Orson Welles. This one is pretty interesting because when I have a pretty bad uh not only my memory, but I have a pretty bad ability, let me put it this way, ability to recognize their names. So in this case, from Orson Welles, I just captured OR and well. And I thought that was George Orwell. And I thought, okay, so that's Orwell, not Orson Welles. And then he started talking and talking about things that didn't match with the guy that I had in mind. I said, wait. There's something wrong with this message. I had to put that into, let's say, the first time I did this, I put it in quarantine until I did some deep research and say, hey, I'm not capturing the right name here. And then it made sense because what he was talking about, it was really, Orson Welles. And so there's this message. There are well, of course, the galactic messages, a gazillion here, a message from Mary, um, and Isaiah, Zachary, um, and yeah, a, a bunch of things. Oh, there's an Atlantean king uh, talking about. He was a king before the Atlantean started investing in technology and stuff like that, and started their downfall. So he's talking about how splendorous was Atlantis from his time. And well, yeah, that's pretty much the latest book. I mean, the one that I'm working right now is called Scientia et Anima. It is in Latin, not the book, the title only. And the purpose of this new book is basically to revisit the huge gap that we created between science and spirituality.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Because if you look at the Federation, there's no distinction between those two sides of the coin. They're the coin,
Mhm.
right? And here, those two are so separated.
Yep.
And each day they're one step further and further from each other. And we can see a lot of stuff that science cannot prove, but there are some things that if we look from the spiritual side, it could be a way to resolve it, and vice versa. I mean, we can just be, blindfolded by faith and not look at the real things that are happening, right? So that there's this balance. So instead of putting them away from each other, it's putting them together. And so they talk about the fabric of the universe, how the spiritual world is divided, how is the what are the steps or in our own spiritual evolution as a being, since our being part of a primordial ooze and becoming, an extension of source creator. um they talk about creation of force fields, real, not spiritual, but real force fields. They talk about how stargates work in Alpha Centauri. A lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. I'm in the middle of the book, and yeah, it's already amazing. Yeah.
Sounds
Sorry,
pretty
again.
awesome. No, no, you're good. I just wanted to ask, do your messages come through in the order that you put them in the book, or do you ever like omit a little bit and take something from somewhere else and add it to what you're currently working on?
Very good question. Um, I usually put them in order. Um, I started in the call list now. I didn't mention specifically the dates there, but I put one date or another. But then I started mentioning that in the other books to say, hey, this message, we started the session on March 18th, or, and this is the first message. So there is a chronological order.
Nice.
But there were cases where I had to work on two or more books at the same time because the messages were, let's say, from one book, or another. So you will see that, let's say, chronologically, maybe there is a gap in a day because that day was from for messages from the other book.
I see.
Yeah.
Do they let you know that it goes with a specific book, or do you just kind of piece together the messages and figure that out?
I think they do because
Good.
when I start the session, I have a feeling, hey, I need to pick up this book, this notebook, and not the other one. So when I grab that notebook, and then I know that the message is about whatever that book is about, right?
Nice.
So, for example, Scientia et Anima, that's one example. I mean, uh, it's like they're uh, guiding me to pick that particular notebook and not the other. It's weird, but
It seems like you're doing a really good job with it, man.
Yeah. Pretty great job.
oh, thank you.
Um. So, uh, it's a strange question, but do you feel like there's like a greater percentage of a different entity that channels through you? Like, do you feel like it's more that have passed on, or more extraterrestrial, or perhaps ultra terrestrial? Do you feel like it's just kind of a mixture of like who can utilize you the best at the moment at the time?
Good question. It's a mix, and it's a total surprise. I mean, what I do is I just sit there and with my pen, and then the message start coming. But uh, there are I think that's all to a little bit of everything. There's no, let's say, oh, there are more messages from that kind of beings, or I don't know. No, I think that's, well, let me rephrase it, because there are some books that were specific, for example, there is a book called book 5 is Letters from the Galactic Federation of Light. So this book is 100% messages from the GFL, right? So their citizens, started, sending letters and saying how was, their life, or their work, or, whatever they wanted to talk about. There is another book, book number 3, that is letters from the sanctuary. This one. and basically there are no aliens. It's the sanctuary is an astral city located in the Oklahoma City region. So there are letters from people there saying how, for their lives, what they do, what they like to do, how was their lives, how they died, a bunch of stuff. But that's only from spirits. Yeah.
I'm kind of excited to get into that book there. I was trying to keep the pace. When we met the last time, I'd made it through about half of the second book, and then I waited as we got closer to here, so it was fresh in my head. Um, and with that being said, Jason and I were curious if you could kind of take us through a bit of your second book there, the Galactic Federation of Light Manual.
Of course. So we're talking about this one. This is the Galactic Federation of Light Manual. And one interesting thing, yes, I have it here with me. It's this volume one. The subject is so intense that there is a volume two.
Nice. Yeah, it
So
was
the Galactic Federation of Light Manual, that started with a message saying, hey, um, let's put together, a book that will compile um, ideas from multiple sources. So this is not a channeled book. This and the in volume two, they're the only ones that I didn't channel. There are some areas that they derive from channeled messages, but they're not channeled. So because the thing that we can see commonly out there is that people talk a lot about the Galactic Federation, the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, and all those guys. But if you try to search for a specific book that would put together, all of that and say, hey, this is a summary of this topic or this huge topic. And of course, then you can go from there and start, oh, I like more Pleiadians, so I'm going to search for books about Pleiadians and so on. But the Galactic Federation of Light Manual will start to cover, since the Lyrian Wars, the Orion Wars. It will explain a little bit about some Federation technologies. It will talk about some of the Federation civilizations and some of those beings that are not part of the Federation and their motives, right? I mean, automatically we might think, oh, that's because they are evil beings or something like that, right? They're the enemy. No, it's not like that. I mean, there are some. Each one, we can see that there's no when we talk about the soul, there is no one or zeros, good and bad. You cannot just put two labels and fit people in it because we are not like that, right? I mean, I I may be very good into certain things or with some people, but at others I might be terrible, right? Um, we can do errors on our daily basis that it's human. I mean, you're human, you and me, right? I mean, so that's why we can't say that it's just like if we say, oh, the Pleiadians, they are the good guys, right? So how do we label mankind? Right.
Yep.
You see my point. I mean, if we're going to label the others, let's try first to label ourselves. Not particular country, not a particular state, not a particular, no, the planet, mankind,
Right.
right? I
Can't
mean,
do it.
you can do it. You can't do it. Same thing with the our cosmic friends. For example, there is a very important lesson that I learned throughout the series is about reptilians. Um, they are they bad? Can we label them as bad? Well, there are some that are still struggling, in this path, but there are others that they are not like that, just like humans. There's an example of a pacifist called Astra, and I got, I think, about 3 or 4 messages from her already. The first one told the story of Astra going from where she's telling us that as she was a pacifist, she was banished from the reptilian homeworld, and she had to she went into forceful labor in a mining moon,
Oof.
and that was a pretty tough moment. But she said, "Well, I was lucky because people like me they get worse uh, destinies." So that was, and then there was another message from her adoptive father telling a story when she was a kid. And so basically, her parents were considered betrayers from the empire empire. And well, they when someone from your, at least well, that's what he was saying, when someone from your family is considered a traitor, then everyone is a traitor. Everyone from your family, the whole family is a traitor.
Oh, wow.
So they took her parents, and she was alone, like in kind of an analogy here would be a bus stop. So she was there, in this at this bus stop, uh, all alone. It was raining, and then this guy that he missed his bus. What is and again, guys, it's just an analogy with a bus here, but he missed his bus, and then when he went back there and went to the bus stop, he saw this kid all alone, and he said, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need help?" And then he understood her situation, and then he decided to take her in, take care of her. The thing is that when you do that to a trader, you also become a trader.
Yep, man.
So he had to move to a remote location, out of the eyes of the government, raise her in secrecy. So that was pretty intense.
It sounds like
Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's basically that's an example of reptilians, just like you and me. I mean, just a regular guy, that sees a kid and say, "Hey, let me help this kid. I don't care if the government will treat me as a traitor, but I need to take care of that kid."
right.
Right? Uh, and this story is in Tales from the Galactic Federation of Light. This one that from her adoptive father. This one here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. This, by the way, this one is one of my favorite books because it's very thin.
Hmm.
It's one of the thinnest, but it's so rich. So basically, that's people from the Galactic Federation telling us tales, from their worlds, or could be real stories, or they can be, some folklore from their civilizations. Um, but I'm sorry, going back to the Galactic Federation of Light Manual.
Well, I just want to add real quick, you said earlier you can kind of jump anywhere into this series. That's the first one that I started with, and I really enjoyed it. So then I jumped back to the first one, so that we could prepare for meeting with you the first time. So, yeah, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you there,
Yeah.
man.
No, that's fine, and that's something good to hear, because that's what the intent, right? I mean, we close the book, and that's, self-contained. Um, and the Galactic Federation of Light Manual, it's pretty much the same thing. I mean, there are so, for example, it talks about a little bit. The thing is that these topics, they're so immense, right? So huge that even though I tried to put a summarized version here, it's still like almost 300 pages, and it didn't cover everything. So, for example, the Orion Wars, that was a major thing in our universe,
Right.
in our galaxy. Uh, Many believe that Star Wars was inspired by this tale. Um, we That's when the reptilian empire allied with insectoids. They started to invade and dominate a pretty good chunk of the Orion's arm of our galaxy. And that's when hell broke loose. I mean, just like the Empire from Star Wars, oppressing, destroying planets, all the kind of stuff, is exactly how things happened in the Orion Wars. There were no Jedi's, but there were rebels. There was some sort of rebellion, trying to fight back. I think that we can see that there is, at some point, not Jedi's, but spiritual beings, because a Jedi, at its source, he is kind of a monk, right? Um, so all these spiritual beings, getting together, and at the end of the Orion Wars, we can see the things crumbling from the side of the reptilian empire. And then finally there is a peace treaty, and the first Council of Light is created. That is the very birth of the Galactic Federation. Um, and and in this book that I mentioned, Tales from the Galactic Federation of Light, there are some tales about the Orion Wars. So, worlds where the Empire would come and basically destroy everything in there. So, there are some pretty interesting tales. Yeah, I mean, and of course, we like I said, I mean, we move also to technologies. And so, for example, I'm not sure if it's in this one or the second one that we talk about medbads, and I think intergalactic uh, travel, things like that. Oh, there's one other interesting topic here in the book that is about the the monetary system. So how's money, right, in the Galactic Federation? Um, and well, I mean, it's just full of stuff here, a lot of stuff.
It is very dense. You did a very thorough job, and many of the groups you summarized I hadn't even heard of. So, it's really interesting to go through and, uh, take what I know and have your understanding overlaid with that, and then learn a little bit more. And then, yeah, it was great how you went into, speaking of the Galactic Federation of Light, talking about some of their technology. Again, First Contact came after that, and, it was a very dense, thorough book.
Yeah. And talking about first contact, that's one of the greatest topics now, right? One of the chapters from this book is really about the Federation steps making first contact. So just summarizing how it works is they they do not come in a huge ship, you know, on the top of the World Trade Center, or things like that, because or District 9, uh, it would just create fear, panic, right? You feel helpless looking at such a structure on top of your head,
Hmm.
right? So what they do is actually uh, approach in stages, right? One stage that they didn't explicitly mention here, but it's mentioned across the series, is that a lot of people right now is being contacted by the Galactic Federation, right? If you look like 10 years ago, right, you wouldn't see that many messages out or people, right? So you can see a trend that, they're doing this effort behind the scenes where they're approaching people that are ready to start channeling these messages, relaying these messages out. So that's where, we are more, but when we hear about Pleiadians or Arcturians, you know, at least we have heard about them already. We heard about some sort of galactic council or group or federation, right? It's not only, we're not in the land of evil aliens anymore, right? So that's one good thing. But at some point, that's still not physical contact, right? And because people might say, "Hey, I mean, that guy's delusional, right? He's just, producing something out of his mind." I mean, I I hope my mind would be so creative to have, all these 12 or almost 13 books. I mean, I personally can't do that. I don't have the ability of producing that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But so what would they do? They would start with what they call the dance of lights. The dance of lights is that at some point when um, when we would look at the skies, we would start seeing these bright objects or orbs or whatever, colorful, not only white. So we would know that that's not a star, that's something else. So it would start moving, doing kind of a dance of lights in the sky. We would know that that's not a drone because it doesn't do any buzzing sound. We know that it's not an airplane because it's dancing. It's not just going straight in a straight line.
Hmm.
So there's no sound. There's just the objects. And well, it's the very analogy like when you approach, a baby, right? With a toy, you come, "Hey, baby," and then don't cry, don't panic, right, baby? So that's the exact same, psychological idea. So they would, do these dances, that would be nice. People would see that from multiple places across the planet, not only just one single location. Um, and then one day, those orbs or vessels, they would start to show during daytime. And then you would see a spaceship there, a tiny one, not a massive megastructure. So a small ship or ships in the on the sky, and then you would that's when you would get intrigued, saying, "Hey." During the day, they would just stop. At night, they would, continue their show. Um, and then that moment would be just like a friend knocking at your door. He would stay outside, knocking at your door, saying, "May I come in?" If you do not open your door, he will not come in, right? He will stay there. So that's what will happen. They will just stay there, saying, "Hey, can I descend? Can I come in? Can I present myself?" Um, so that's a moment where hopefully we're not going to start shooting those those vessels. We'll start to we need to embrace them, vibrate in love there, right? And say, okay, you're welcome here. And once we vibrate in love towards them, they will descend and present themselves, get out of the ship and say, "Hey, we are here," right? So, I mean, it might take some time, right? Especially during this last phase, because one thing that they say is that please do not shoot us.
Right.
Not because
Golly.
it will hurt us, because those things, bullets will not hurt us. We have our technology is far from that, but it's not polite, right?
No kidding.
Yep.
No kidding. Um, WL, I'm really layman guy. I keep it really simple. And what I love about this book, it really highlights. I feel like the kind of like the It's kind of like the universal UN, if you will, right? Because this thing was birthed out of like so much tragedy and the wars and the pain, and these beings took ran with that, and they understood that they had to change, and they kind of collated or they grouped together, and realized that they needed to stop all this nonsense essentially in the universe. And what's beautiful about that is that they're helping us now, like you said, kind of behind the scenes. What I love about it is not only do you describe how the beings look like, what their energetic characteristics are, physical characteristics and non-physical characteristics, what their role is within the Federation, and what their role is with us. I just want to thank you for that, because sometimes it gets a little confusing. There's a lot of different beings, and you're like, well, everybody can't do everything, right? So it's kind of like I like that some of the groups are more specialized than others, and then they work so well together. And I think the beautiful thing is to find out down the road what our role is going to be. You know, and I think that they're going to help us out with that. But like you said, it's going to take us some time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one thing that I don't remember exactly in which book, maybe book 11, Winds of Change. There was a message from a Federation being. She was from, what was her race? The Umites. Yes, she was a Umite. The Umites, they are very logical beings. very logical. You can compare them in Star Trek with the Vulcans, for example. Exactly. Um, but of course, they're different from the Vulcans. They're more spiritualized. They're even though um they are logical, you can feel love from them. They will not vibrate. Well, not love, but they will vibrate in that area, right? In that kind of area. Things that the Vulcans from the science fiction would not do, right? But she was explaining, well, she was talking about a bunch of things, but one thing that she mentioned in that message is that she's thrilled, well, not thrilled, but she really looks forward for the Earth to join the Federation. Have we have so we that we have a first contact that start really, exchanging our experiences and everything, because they admire our ability of handling chaos. And she says we love the phrase that if someone gives you lemons, do a lemonade, right? So I mean, we have this subtle ability that it's kind of rare in the universe. I mean, we can do it naturally, And when I got that message, I said, yeah, you're right. I mean, we can do that pretty well.
Oh man, we're kind of like really good ground commanders. Kind of like a guy you need to, to tell you what to do in the middle of when there's grenades going off.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
um. So, one of the first the first group you talk about are the Pleiadians, and I don't think you stated it well in your book, but can you state just kind of how really important this group is to us in particular? Because not within the Federation, but to us, because I kind of feel like they're our greatest ally in this whole entire new coming of age, if you will.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, we do have, well, let's say all the Federation, all their beings, they are our allies, but there are some beings we might relate better. So, not because, well, yes, it could be because of uh, our evolutionary stage, where let's say that we see a giant cockroach or a giant spider talking, you might not have the same feeling as a tall Nordic talking to you, right? We're not at that, most of us are not at that stage where we do not care if it is the giant spider or the Nordic talking to us. So they would be, let's say, our front gate to the Federation, right? So they would be the people that will mainly be in contact with us, because we would accept them, from the outer shell would be more pleasing talking to, right? That's a harsh reality, and it hurt us, right? Because we think, oh no, I would love to, to see them, and but there are beings and beings that there's one of them that his race, they don't have a head, they don't have heads,
I
that
want to
they're
I want to jump in real quick. You mentioned that the last time you chatted with us, and someone that I know very well got really excited because they're aware of them as well. And I just wanted to say, they really enjoyed hearing you talk about them. But go ahead.
oh, thank
Sorry to
you.
interrupt you again.
No, that's very good information, thank you. So people, they, with so different shapes, forms, uh, uh, Very different. And the Pleiadians is probably one of the closest guys, that we can resemble. Mainly also because back, well, a long time ago, they also helped seed Earth, right? So we're not that we are their direct descendants, but we have, part of us uh, come from them. So, and they are logical. They're very loving people, but they are more direct when talking to you. They will, if they have something to tell you, they will tell you. They will not start polishing, the phrase, so your feelings will not get hurt. So they would just shoot it. Um, but still, they pass this energy, a loving energy, just like, for example, oh, you are now talking to Gandhi or Mother Teresa, right? It's different from talking to me. Talk to those guys and talk to me, right? You see the difference. I mean, it's the total different levels, right? Um, so that's more kind of like it. One thing that they mention is that the first beings that will get out of these vessels and present to mankind will be these humanoids, the Pleiadian beings, because we'll not just be shocked, right? I mean, the first contact with another civilization is, something, a creature out of the world, right? So that's something that we can relate to. So I think that particularly the Pleiadians, they do, of course, that they have, not only that, but I think for us, for mankind, that would be the main thing with them right now, right?
So it does certainly seem like it'll be a lot easier on people for the Pleiadians to be first. They can really relate to them. They look similar. There isn't this big shock, compared to maybe like a mantis being getting out of a ship, which ties
Exactly.
in with all sorts of movies that didn't end so well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to say one thing that I really liked from this book were the practical exercises. And I kind of have a multiple part question here, but to start, how did you come up with those?
Well, those are I used, to be quite frank, I used a lot of artificial intelligence to compile things from multiple sources
Mhm.
there, right? And those at the end, when I was doing this compilation, I thought, you know what? Maybe we could have, let's say a couple lines or a paragraph or whatever, inviting people to connect with these beings, right? That would be, an early exercise for what the dance of lights would be later on, right? Because at some point, we'll need to connect with them, say, hey, please, you're welcome here. You can come down. Why can't we do that exercise right now, right? So, based on each of these collected ideas, then I look at that and say, hey, how can we connect to this kind of energy, right? So that's basically where these exercises come from.
Okay.
They're not uh, rules, right? They're not rules. So if you want to connect with Arcturians differently, you can do it, right? It's just, a suggestion how you can, try to, if you never did this, and you say, hey, where do I start, right? So this is a suggestion. If you want to do it differently, do it differently. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Thank you for answering that. I really enjoyed those. I haven't gone through many of them yet, but there was that, and then also the meditations at the end of the book. You said the last time it's one of those things where whether you believe it's real or not, read the book, and you know, at a minimum, you might be a little bit better of a person at the end. And I'm paraphrasing what you said, of course. And I totally saw that in the second book as well, even though it wasn't channeled messages. There's a lot of things in there that seem like it'll have, at a minimum, positive influence on your life.
Yeah, and I think the whole idea of the series is that, I mean, if you can take, really absorb one message from the hundreds of messages, right? If you can absorb one, put that into practice, and look, let's say 10 years from now, you look back at yourself and say, hey, I I got better. I'm a better person now. The job is done. The job is done, right? So that's where they provide you multiple uh, ways of doing that. So, oh, you like meditation. So here's meditation. So you like words from the galactic beings. You like words from a prophet, so they can pass the same idea, the same message that we got to get better, right?
Right. One of the things I loved about the Galactic Federation of Lights is the core values, and I believe I made a little quick note about them, um, being sovereignty, unity, and peaceful cooperation. Because a lot of times, people may hear like federation, and they may think like, well, they're implementing their rules and stuff, and kind of like what you're saying right now. Um, they're trying to help us, but not everything is set in stone. How to contact them, how to understand them, and how to go about this experiment we call life. Um, and I really think that it's really cool that they understand that we're still learning it. So a big part of that whole non-interference thing is a really big thing too. I really like about that. Now, back to earlier about Pleiadians being kind of like the earlier first open contact beings we're going to go into later on in the book. You mentioned Alpha Centaurians. We're gonna because of their proximity. Now, if I'm mistaken, is it not just because of their appearance, but also because of the proximity of their planet that it'll be easier for us to travel back and forth for us to understand the expanse of space? Or can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a very good point. The Alpha Centaurians, they are, in appearance, they are close to us, but not as close as the Pleiadians, right? Um, but the thing about Alpha Centauri, it's a logistics hub from the Federation. There are many, but from there, and that is very very detailed in this new book that I'm still writing. But basically, Alpha Centauri, they have these stargates uh, where they connect to other gates, right? Just like the science fiction, right? The Stargate movie or series. The idea is kind of the same, but not only from one point of our universe to another, but also through the hyper universe. That's the collection of universes, right? So we can move from one universe to another through these gates as well. And this technology is so complex that you can't just have one Stargate here on Earth, because who's going to operate and maintain that kind of thing? So civilization needs to be ready for that. And the Alpha Centauris, they have been doing that for thousands of years. So whenever they're our closest neighbor, right? So naturally, when we are, in the Federation and we need that kind of transportation, we would have to go there and use their facilities. Um, but that's and one thing about Alpha Centauri is that they have an observation post. I don't know if we can call it a post, but they have an observation post there to look at Earth, right? So they can, because it's the closest point outside of the solar system where they can um, look at our evolution, our whatever's happening here, um, from a hub perspective, right?
Very nice.
Like to add that Stargate SG-1 is my all-time favorite show. So
Yeah,
Oh,
thank
I
you for
love it.
mentioning that.
I
It was
love
so good. My gosh, watching it again with my wife, it's, it's good.
it. I don't know if how much you guys watch like internet news. I'm really into where's Russ Colhart? He's with News Nation on YouTube, and he covers this subject quite. He covers the extraterrestrial subject pretty seriously. And a few weeks ago, he had mentioned that he was brought onto a national park site where there was essentially like a portal there. And so, like, that kind of akens to a lot of stories within kind of in our realm and our niche about people walking into different portals into the woods. We spoke to a gentleman by the name of Orville at a Board Cab Crystal Mine who's has been walked through several portals on his property, and it just kind of reminds me, of course, like that's happening on our Earth, whether naturally or supernaturally. But it's really cool that they trusted a civilization with something similar in order for us to traverse the universe and to meet different points in space and time. I think it's pretty cool that we have somebody kind of close to help us out with that. Um, you know, I think there's a big understatement how cool this is, because I think a lot of people feel alone in this subject. And if you're telling them like, hey, not only is there a federation, but they want you to succeed in yourself and in also contacting them. So I think this is a really out of the little series, I've really enjoyed this so far. Even though I haven't finished all the book myself, to be frank with you, I've really enjoyed about learning about the different species. Um, Now, the one little odd thing I find is the Syrians. Now, when you speak about the Syrians, I think what was really cool about that thing, or about, excuse me, about speaking about them, I feel like in the past they really were like a big, huge sharer of knowledge, and we had built a lot of our infrastructure and a lot of our belief systems around their teachings. Um, and now, one of the things that I was wanting to always bring in the speech was when the people of the Dogon tribe had talked about Sirius A and Sirius B and the stars in that system. Um, could you elaborate on some of the thing that I found interesting was some of the looks, and then they even described too that they're very aquatic looking. Is there any way that you could describe to the people or to the audience um, a big kind of part of the how that's spiritually attached to us as well, because it's kind of like within the animals, within the dolphins and the whales. I think there's a lot more connection there than we give it credit for. I don't know if you'd be able to elaborate on that, please.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a very good point. The Syrians, um, they are aquatic beings, right? And but not, let's say, they're not like dolphins, where we look at those beings like inferior to humans. Like, by the contrary, they are so advanced that we are fish compared to them. They would be the humans looking at a fish. That would be something around that. For you to have an idea, Mary, the mother of Jesus, she is Assyrian. Not, well, she was Assyrian incarnated on Earth on a mission. She was invited by Jesus, and to be his mother during that mission. And one thing they I don't remember exactly in which book, but they mentioned that that was such a sacrificial mission to her, because can you imagine that she came from an aquatic land, right, aquatic planet, to one of the most desert places on Earth. So not only, during a very hard moment in our history, so everything was, and she did it beautifully, right? Um, so that's, I can try to find it later, but I don't remember by heart exactly in which book that message is. But that gives us an idea about Syrians, right? I mean, if we look at Mary and we see, hey, that woman was someone else. I mean, that's not a regular woman. Everything I that she went through, the psychological pressure, the physical pressure, everything around her. Um, and then we if we move that to the general Syrian population, that's the same thing. So that's that kind of beings that we're talking about, and they provide us with an an amount of knowledge, right? That's indescribable. That's just, they have been evolving for millions of years, right? When we were still, primates on trees, they were already, super evolved. Um, so I mean, that there's a lot from us to learn with them, not only from technology, but as beings as well, from spiritually. We grow to that point, right?
That's one thing that really kind of got me, looking at all the different groups that you spoke of, like such as arachnids that are huge, right? But here we see them as just like a bug, a spider. And then, of course, the mantis, the cockroach, really makes me wonder if there somewhere else is a version of us that others look at as just a bug or a pest or something. I don't
Yes,
know.
yes, that's a good question, because they do. I don't remember again which book, but there is a message that says basically that uh, all these beings that we see on Earth, there is an intelligent, at least one intelligent equivalent out there,
Mhm.
right? And not only, let's just making sure I'm saying it correctly. It's not that every being, the universe is composed of beings from Earth, but it's a reflection, right? There are many more out there that we don't even imagine how they are. But uh, and the other case is the same thing. I mean, we as primates, we evolved from primates that were, pretty much monkeys, right? Or an analogy to monkeys, but we started the evolution from there. Same thing out there. There might be these primates that they didn't evolve, or they are not at an evolution step as we are, right? And we can see that right now on Earth, right? There are, I think there are chimps, but there was, I forgot the exact name of the researcher, but she basically researched a group of primates uh, where they were using tools. already, just like we started using, let's say, 300,000 years ago. So they were basically using sticks to to kind of fish termites from their anthills, right? So they would use the stick so they could eat those termites and use those sticks as tools. And that's not something that any animal can do, right? So that requires some level of intelligence. So a beginning, a spark of intelligence where we were back then, right?
Of
That's
course.
the same thing out there.
It's interesting stuff.
Oh, so I off subject because this kind of came up previously before we brought WL on, and this does not necessarily have anything to do with the book, but it does have to do with the subject and channeling and so forth. WL, have you ever had by yourself any experiences with owls?
Owls,
Yeah.
not that I'm aware of.
Oh,
I mean, I'm fascinated. I mean, I love the way owls are, but no,
I
uh,
was curious
yeah.
because there's like an ongoing coalition or correlation between contactees and owls and different messages and in Native American folklore. It's always kind of like a transformation of a person, into just different spiritual teachings, which kind of leads to you mentioned another group, the Blue Avians. Now, I didn't really dive into that as deep as I'd like to. Can you please tell me their role in the Galactic Federation, how they're helping us as well?
Yeah, the avians, they they will bring us more to the wisdom side, right? So they will again most there are let me go back to a concept, right? We there are avians that are more advanced than others, right? So there are more physical beings, avian beings, right? And there are those that they don't need this flesh anymore. They are pure spirits, right? We have seen both throughout history and channelings, right? So, and they're pretty distinct, right? These non-corporeal beings, they are majestic. People would describe them as some in a huge form, something beautiful, and their energy also out of this world. The uh, the physical avians, they might be above us in terms of evolution as well, but they not necessarily are at that level that I mentioned. So they would be, let's say, like the Pleiadians, right? Would be the kind of the same level, something around that. Um, I don't remember right now if I received a message from an avian. Uh, I maybe I did, but the thing is that a lot of these guys they do not identify their civilization or their race, but they are answering your question. They're much more towards wisdom rather than sharing technology or that kind of stuff. So I think we would have a lot to learn from these guys.
I just want to say I've done a few sessions with people that regress back to uh, avian lifetimes, and I totally concur with what you're saying here. There was one that was very, physical, And, they were told what they needed to hear about that life experience to make sense of things that were happening in their life at this time, which it was amazing when I was able to piece everything together at the end. It was pretty mind-blowing. But the other, I think is closer to your first example, where they would travel to different areas where those that inhabited uh, the planet were not doing so well, and energetically, just by their presence, it would kind of uplift everybody. And it was really beautiful to hear, honestly. But
And that's the idea that of what the Federation is doing right now on Earth. They have one of the recent messages. I think that's in the latest book. I think they mentioned 130 something or 20 something ships around Earth helping energetically because we are going through some pretty heavy stuff here, right?
yep,
So they're helping us in this holding our psych sphere. The psych sphere is basically our mental projections, right? So we can project good things and bad things. During a day, we usually produce more bad things than good things, right? I mean, if we get tense, we get, we get nervous, there is jealous or, whatever, that someone honks at you in traffic. So you're projecting that mentally, and that energy starts to build up around Earth, right? And they're there to contain that energy, try to filter it, try to help, dissipating this because they don't want that kind of energy also to propagate throughout the the universe, right?
Of course. I always, like I mentioned in every podcast, I always try to keep things simple and always trying to get back to the origin of things. And so, with the whole Galactic Federation coming out of the tragedy of the Orion Wars, one of the little excerpts I like about the book, and I'm gonna say it right here: the spiritual lesson of the Orion Wars: power without compassion breeds suffering. And it just kind of reminds me of like a society can create so much decadence that it'll forget that the suffering that it maybe it'll cause upon others, and I think sometimes that kind of back to Peter Parker, with great power comes great responsibility, and um, and we got to keep that in mind that as we're ascending as a society, that we have to take those lessons that they were trying to give to us about the mess ups that they had too, and just kind of steer away from that. And I think we're doing a pretty good job. But right now we're kind of going through our little own personal Rhine war right now, and I'm hoping for a great outcome, or a good outcome for that, and for all of us to be safe and be in a loving space. But right now it's a little hard because the world's a little fractured right now.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
just a quick parenthesis there. Uh, it is one thing that they always say that we are here, this incarnation that we have, it's unique because we have the opportunity to grow so much compared to our past versions. So it's right at our hands to do that. I mean, we have the ability to, just stay where we are, just enjoy the view. I don't care what happens on the outside, or I can do a difference, right? Not politically speaking, but uh, energetically speaking, I can go to the supermarket and smile at people. You know, I can if I don't know, help an old lady, right, with her shopping. Uh, Anything, small things. Just have a bottle of water. in your car, because in a when you stop at a at an intersection, maybe there's someone there, asking for money, and then you don't have money, but you can give him this bottle of water. You know that that's what you can do. So those small things, well, that's where we are right now. What we can do, right? Of course, there are people out there that they have billions and billions of dollars. They can buy much more than a bottle of water and share more than a bottle of water. But what can we do with what we have, right? I think that's a very important moment in time that we are. I'm sorry, Jason. I cut you.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't at all. It's beautiful. Um, because I don't think I think when the reader finally gets to your books, what's beautiful is sometimes when I read a book, I'm reading it with my voice in my head, but like for whatever reason, I'm reading it with your voice, and because you are this channeler, you are this muse, and it's coming through you, even though it's coming somewhere else, it's coming through you. So I feel like I'm reading through your eyes, and it's kind of like I'm reading it for the first time with you because it's not coming from necessarily from you. So and I just love I would say it the verbal tapestry that you use. It's not the most complicated, but it gets straight to the point of what you're trying to convey. So I think that besides like the different, because you talk about the books aren't necessarily connected. I feel like they're different art pieces, and then this art piece is telling us about kind of like the composition of our I call it our team, because we're going through this war in our society and ourselves, and here's this team of people that really want to help us spiritually and as a society, and they're doing the best that they can, and right now you're their medium. And so these it's every even though it gets long, the if you go through it and you understand it, it just draws this beautiful picture of like basically compassion and love from these people out here who's trying to reach to us through you, essentially.
And well, first of all, thank you for reading with my voice. I wouldn't recommend that.
You know what I mean? It's like I just
I don't
feel
like
like
my
I'm
voice.
watching. Oh
I don't
man,
recommend that, people. Okay. But that's something that these I like to see myself as I'm in the very same classroom as everyone else here, right? And the difference is that I'm sitting, right in front of the teacher. And as the teacher is talking, I'm taking notes. They're desperately taking the notes. And of course, there are the other students that they will say, "Hey, did you take note about what she said?" And I say, "Hey, yeah, of course, here it is, right?" Just like in school. That's what I'm doing. I mean, um, I can tell you guys that uh, I'm a better person. I mean, after so many lessons, I didn't absorb 1% of them. I I didn't. I expect that if I absorb 1% of these messages, whoop, that will be a pretty dramatic change. Yeah, but that's the kind of stuff, that these guidances, they are pretty profound, and each message, they can be seen with different eyes by different people. So the very same message that I read when I read may not bring you, Jason or Jordan, the same impact. It would be different. I didn't notice that until I talked to a friend of mine, and we were talking about I don't remember which message, but we were talking about a specific message, and she was pointing out things that I said, I never thought about that. I never thought about this angle. And she was reading the message with a total different angle from what I read I read it, and not that she was doing it wrong. No, and not that I was doing it wrong, but it was just different. And I think that's pretty awesome.
It really is. It's cool to hear that, yeah, you can tell when you go through them, but they do seem like dense messages that, at different points in your life or with different experiences, you'll understand it in a different way or be able to unpack more of what the message said, um, and basically get multiple lessons out of the same thing there. It's really cool. Now, I'm curious, with all the groups that you mentioned here, have you channeled someone from each of the groups, or are there any groups that you haven't channeled yet?
Oh yeah, I I mean, maybe I have channeled people that I didn't know, because a lot of times they just deliver the message. Other times I get the mental impression of that being. So, for example, here in the latest book, there are there's one that he looked like those orcs from World of Warcraft, for example.
Huh.
Those that they like pigs, or with the their teeth.
Hmm.
Um, and then there was another one that he looked like a toad, a frog, but humanoid. So his format was humanoid, but with the head of a frog. Uh, well, I mentioned reptilian. There is one guy. His insectoid, just like a mantis. And when I first channeled that guy, I it was totally different, because he spoke in a much faster way than I could capture what he was talking. It was different. And well, later I think they adjusted that with my mind, and I I could write that down slower. There was one being also in the latest book that the way they communicate is different, totally different from anything. They basically use a feeling as a carrier for the message. On top of that feeling, let's say love, they would add other feelings or mental impressions.
Oh, wow.
So he mentioned, said, for example, if I would say I love you, I would use the care for the carrier love, point that to your direction, and spike the message at the end saying that I love you. If I would say the car is blue, I would use, for example, love as a carrier. I would add materialism there. I would add the picture of a car, the color blue, and also what those images would transmit to you as a feeling.
Hmm.
So, and said at the end, well, all this message I could have, transmitted in a single instant, but we took a long time to get to the bottom of this message.
Yeah, wow. Man, that's really interesting. And thank you for
Yeah.
explaining that process. That's neat to hear. Now, how does it feel energetically? Is it different with different beings for you? Are there any where the energy is just a lot? Or,
Yeah, I'm energetically, I I don't feel that much. I can feel, the differences, but for example, if there is a much higher being, delivering a message, I can say, "Hey, this is different," or But usually, I feel like I'm talking to you guys, right? I mean, just peers, and that. I mean, maybe because I don't have the mediumship at that level of the empathetic
Hmm.
mediumship. I think that's the term. Uh, but I get it at some level. Yeah.
I see.
There was a little this little excerpt I wanted to take out that was really earlier in the book, and I want to kind of elaborate on that. It said, I want an invitation to look up at the night sky and see, but not see emptiness, but family. And I also thought, also thought too, besides the night sky and the multitude of the universe, but I think a lot of times we could do that to each other. We could look at we look at other strangers and we see a whole world apart from us because our lives are so different. And I just thought, well, if you looked at them as family, I think you would look at them a little bit different than just something that's a nobody to you. Um, there's a lot of like little golden nuggets in this book, and a lot of the previous ones too. Especially in the first one, there was kind of like what me and Jordan talk about. You change as a person as you're reading some of these words. You really do start becoming a better person. And one of those things in that very first book that really touched me, and I still think about it, was seeing God in every living being, and seeing the expression of everybody as a living expression of God in a different variation. It quite touched me. I didn't talk about it too much. I wanted to thank you for that perspective on that. You know,
Well, thank them, not
yeah,
me.
yeah. I've heard it, but sometimes you need to hear it from the right person, I guess.
And that part of God being in everything, it's literally that. I mean, in this new book, as there is a special, there's one chapter that the teacher will go through every single step in our evolution, and also in other messages, they mention that um, they don't kill any being, even a bacteria. They do kill viruses because viruses are more like small robots, than they don't have life. But even bacteria, they would, if they need to, let's say, if you have a disease, with a bacteria, they would remove the bacteria from you, but they will not kill it. They will just remove it and put it somewhere else. And that's the level of respect that I don't think we're ready, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we 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 kill bugs, right? We kill spiders. We kill because we just see them as inferior. We eat chicken. We eat beef, right? We eat other animals. So when we start, doing that kind of exercise, everything changes. I mean, everything changes.
yes. Um, there's a little excerpt I wanted to also mention here really quick, and I know I keep saying little excerpts. I was just trying to give like little nuggets for the audience. This is beautiful. Power comes not from domination, but from inner sovereignty, harmonized with loving unity. By reconnecting with their energy, we remember we are free, limitless beings, ready to take our place in the vast family of peaceful star nations. And I really thought that was a great summary, of kind of like the goal of this whole thing that we're trying to do. You know.
Yeah, because at the end, that's where what we are, right? A big cosmic family. I mean, and this is not only one. Jason, we still have a very limited idea about what the life out there is. We just think about, beings from another planet. But here at the Federation, we're not talking about only another planet, but another dimensions, other locations from outside of our reality, our universe. So that's the extent of that family. There are members of that family that we don't even know they are out there, right? They exist. One of the messages that I got said that in this interdimensional world, right, universes that we live in, the Federation constantly receive envoys from other universes, and they meet these envoys and they discover, oh, there's that other universe, because there are infinite universes out there. So it, it's just like our own universe is a speck of sand in the middle of a beach, right?
Man, that's a lot to think about. Golly.
I love thinking about it. I love it. I love it. I used to explain that to people when I first got into everything. I was just like, we could imagine we're a speck of sand inside of the beach. We only see the sand around us. You don't see the sand outside of that sand. You don't see the sand that's, there's so much more, and uh, and it's scary, but it's also beautiful because it's like there's no way we're alone. So it's like, come on, guys, let's meet up. Let's have like a humongous, like, intergalactic barbecue, because we are family. But it's gonna take a little time for us to get used to it. But it's literature like this and people like you, they're gonna help us get us there. I think spiritually and psychologically anyway.
I saw a comparison recently saying that if you take a glass of water, you can, and you use that water, that glass of water, as your sample of the universe of your planet, you might say, I don't believe in whales because I have never seen a whale in my glass of water, right?
Yeah,
So that's exactly how we think today. Oh, I don't believe in extraterrestrial life because I have never seen one, right? But we're just looking at that small glass of water instead of the whole ocean, right?
yeah, yeah. Um, I was curious. With the you speak of oceans what did I just and I know this is probably like something you probably don't know, but I was just curious. Are there a multitude of aquatic beings that get a hold of you outside of the Syrian group?
Hmm, good question. I don't remember.
Okay,
Maybe it's not, well, not frequent, but maybe there could be. I don't remember.
that's all right, man.
I usually, my memory is pretty bad, so I usually remember those that I say, "Oh my God, this is totally different," and they put a mark on my brain.
You know, there's one group you mentioned that my father had quite a bit of experiences with, Andromedans, and the way you described them, I felt like they're like our grandparents. I feel like they're like some of the OGs of the galaxy, and basically they'll step in and help out when when things are getting really rough, or I don't know. I just feel like they're really like kind of like the real authority around in this little corner of the world in the universe over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the Andromedans, that's a very, well, one interesting concept. They at some point they mentioned to me, I don't remember when, but is that we think about Andromedans as a race, right? But Andromeda is a galaxy, and in that galaxy, it's full of people, different races, different civilizations, and of course, there are those more advanced, and those are the what we call the Andromedans, right? Because it, even in our galaxy, we cannot pinpoint specific locations, right? We can assume things. For example, we cannot see beyond our the center of our galaxy, right? We don't know what is at the other side. We can uh, imagine what is at the other side, but we cannot see a star out there. Same thing with the Andromeda galaxy. We can see the cluster of stars, but we can just pinpoint one specific star in there, right? So there are a lot. There are a lot of beings from there, and I think there are beings just as evolved as us, even worse. But there are those very, very, very advanced ones. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was curious because we're merging. Our galaxies are merging, and we have the Alpha Centaurians that are really close. Our galaxies are merging physically, and then so at some point the proximity of some of those civilizations are going to be pretty close as well, comparatively to what they were, especially in the next few thousand years or tens of thousands of years, or possibly a few million more years as we're kind of coming together. And I just like the way that it was described because they were like some of the older civilizations. They were some of the first ones to basically unify, to kind of have like their own, kind of like have their own policing system, if you will. And then with that being said, they're always just kind of like the great example of like kind of like it felt to me like the great example of what a civilization is going to lead to, because they already kind of went through a lot of their growing pains as well, and we're still kind of like, I would say, like midway. We're going through growing pains, but we're also learning from nearby civilizations that went through theirs and learned how to coexist and cooperate with one another. Um, so with these messages of you of contact coming soon, and with the federation being kind of assisting us in the little ways that they can, um what I guess what I'm trying to say is, when the reader is looking at this, do you want, I always one thing that always happens is like timing. They always kind of like urgency. What is like what is some of the most urgent stuff I think that needs to come to home to a person, like that they need to accept or work on in order for us to come together? Because I know some things are there's a lot of suggestions, but sometimes like some people will need like hardcore things. Like, what are some of the things that we need to come together that's going to help us quicker? Because we might be on a short timeline as a society, you know?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, first of all, we need to fix ourselves, the individuals, right? Because the society is just the reflection of many individuals. So once each one of us, we don't need to become saints, right? But if we can get better in respecting each other, understanding each other, right? That comes from our own respect, our own understanding, because many things that when we suffer because we do not accept what's happening, or we're struggling against that situation, most times where we can't do anything, so that's we just try to struggle, right? And that's where we have this suffering. The same thing happens with the outside, right? If but we try to struggle with people, we try to struggle, within society the same way, and we suffer with that. That's a reflection of our own suffering. So we need to respect, and I mean, one thing is that I always tell everyone: if you want, just just pick one flaw that you have. Okay, pick one flaw, and put and uh don't be naive saying that, oh, but I don't have many flaws. Oh, you do. We all do. We have a lot. Pick one. Okay, so let's say, oh, I usually get have a bad temper. Okay, take that. Work, work on that. Work day after day. You're gonna have many failures, but it's just like riding a bicycle, right? You will fall lots of times, but there will be a moment where you'll be really riding the bike. So pick one of those flaws and start working on that. And if you get to a point that, let's say, a few years from now, you will see, okay, well, I'm much better now in that sense. So maybe you don't need to be perfect in that, polishing that flaw or eliminating that flaw, but then you can try to work on other aspects. And that's how I think we can evolve, individually.
Thank you, man. Because I think a lot of people just need want a path. If they really believe in this, which I do, I believe there's a lot of forces in the background that are helping us, and that we need a goal, and the goal is to ascend, and we have to. If you give people simple instructions how to ascend, if they can apply that, we it's a big movement. It may be subtle, but it's a big movement cosmically. So I just think that a start is everything. You don't get anywhere without that first step.
Yeah.
So these books and that understanding, I think, is a great first step. Yeah. With this book, when you had compiled everything, um, did you feel, because of course you had the second volume. Did you know right away that you were going to have a second volume, or did you know that you thought that you were just done, and then later on, it's like, "Hey, buddy, we got more to come towards you."
I had a feeling. I,
Okay,
I, I,
okay,
I won't lie, because when I finished that book and then I said, hey, I didn't even mention this race, this technology, that stuff. There were so many things that I said, okay, I mean, I'm pretty sure that, one day they're going to say, you know what? I think it's time for us to work on volume two.
nice.
Yeah. And that was volume two was what? Book number 7. So yeah, that was
Yeah,
quite a while after that one.
very nice. Well, we're kind of reaching the towards the end of our little time here for this one, but of course, like we let everybody know, we're going to bring you on for multiple ones. Earlier in the segment, you mentioned that your new book that came out, "Life Is Everywhere." I'll implore the audience to check that out anytime, and then we're also going to read that as well, especially right before we do this interview. The next interview, we're going to go over letters from the sanctuary, which I'm looking forward to because it's going to be a little bit
Same.
different than the ET stuff and this other stuff.
Totally
So I'm really
different.
looking forward to the different dynamic of this. Um, before we close this off here, WL, is there anything you'd like to share with the audience? Any other upcoming projects or works or anything else you'd like to share about?
Well, right now, I'm working on. Oh, I just finished, right? Life is Everywhere. So I think that was last week that it was published, something like that. I'm wrapping up the translation for Portuguese, um, and hopefully that will be published tomorrow. The in parallel, I'm working on the book 13, Scientia et Anima. So that's, even though I'm still in chapter 11, It's I think it's almost getting to 200 pages now. That's compared to the other books, that book is dense. That's intense. I mean, you gotta just it's not a book that you're gonna say, oh, let me just pick a page here and read, a message. No, the messages are pages. So, and then after those pages, I try to, drill those down, and get a better understanding to everyone about what that person is talking about. So yeah, that's a pretty heavy lifting. Um, Starting, well, they asked me to put a pause for 1 week so I could work on that book, make sure that would be transcribed from the my notebook. In messages, I think we'll restart tomorrow morning. So I don't know. I mean, tomorrow morning officially, maybe there's another book starting, or maybe they're adding more to Scientia in Anima. I mean, I don't know what will happen.
You're an inspiration, brother, because I've been drawing more kind of ever since our little talks. I've been drawing a lot more, just sitting down, just thinking, just letting it come to me. And so I've had some pretty interesting drawings lately. It's not the same thing, but I look at your mediumship as an artwork, and I feel like you're like the muse of these beings coming to you. And as I was mentioning earlier, as this wrap up, I just want to let you know that I'm really grateful that you've came on this many times,
Yeah,
and we
thank
look
you.
forward to the next time, my friend. This is always really fun talking with you. And as we're wrapping this up, I want to thank the audience for staying, for listening this evening, for taking your time and to get to know us better and getting to know these books better, and the little golden nuggets that they have for all of us to learn from. Um, if you guys are interested in excuse me, QHHT or SCHH sessions, please look down in the description below for Jordan's services. If you're interested in contacting us or being on our show, our emails are also down below within the description. Um, if you're interested in these books that WL has excuse me, written, they're also easily a hold of on Google Books. Not Google, excuse me. What was that again?
Google Play.
Google Play. Thank you, my friend. Google Play. With all that being said, I want to thank you guys once again. Have a blessed evening, and God bless you and good night. I guess.